Alright, so I'm making my last round throughout the mission. What I'm going to do is try to deliver some last minute work. Well, not last minute, but try to deliver as much pictures as possible. Alright, because today is the last day I could really do that. Now, this video is really for Aunty Joy. Right? Aunty Joy asked me for some cassareep, which is a very difficult thing to do, to get in this community right now. Alright? Short answer is that basically they don't have any. Right? That's the short answer. But the long answer is that there are many issues that have been happening that has caused that. Right? Now remember, the flood happened about 2 years ago, and many of the farms lost crops. I don't know if they got any compensation, right? I believe they're supposed to have been given compensation, but I'm not sure if they did. So for a lot of farmers, they got discouraged, and so they stopped farming. They stopped planting and so on. Not just cassava, but a lot of other things as well they stopped doing. The other thing is modernization. Now, a lot of people don't understand how modernization works, but modernization basically means that people are looking for conveniences. That is what modernization does, right? Making cassava bread could take as long as 3 days for most of the people here. They have to go and get the cassava, they have to clean the cassava, and then they will grate the cassava, squeeze out the juice from the cassava, and then they will make the cakes, they call it. It usually takes about 3 days because they don't make just 1 or 2 cakes. They try to make maybe 15 cakes and over. So they have to make a lot. And modernization, it's easier for them to buy a loaf of bread. And it's cheaper too. A loaf of bread, now, some people may get offended when I say this, but really and truly it is modernization, as I said, and I don't want people to get offended because they are modernizing. Okay? The cassava bread, most of it actually comes from outside this village. It's a place called Maraikubai, and someone in Maraikubai makes cassava bread and brings it into this village to sell. It have a few vans that does it as well too, but this particular person is someone I know, right? I was supposed to go Maraikubai and cover them, take out some photos, videos and so on, but I never got the opportunity really to do that, to stay and go with them, go to their place and do that. So they buy cassava bread from outside. A lot of people, it's harder for them to make it. The cassava bread that sells in here usually sells for about 700 Guyanese dollars. And when they buy a loaf of bread, it costs less than $500 for a loaf of bread. Modernization. It's easier to just buy a loaf of bread than to go and try and make cassava bread or buy it from somebody else. As a matter of fact, Maraikubai, the person in Maraikubai comes in here and sells the cassava bread at $500 a cake. So it's cheaper to buy cassava bread outside than to make it in the community. Right? As I said, it is a convenient thing. For example, you know, when I was in Trinidad, I have a bread making machine. The convenience of it is just I just put the ingredients into the bread maker and it makes bread at the time you set the timer on, right? It takes about a 3 to 4 hour process, and the bread is made by the time you set the timer, whenever you want it done. Good morning, how are you? Did you brush your teeth? Nice. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm getting the where I'm going to try and get the cassava, the cassareep for you, Aunty Joy. This cassareep is very special. I hope you understand that, because it's coming from a place called Found Out Landing. I have done photos and videos of that location. It is about 30-minute ride by boat to reach that location, right? So you have to take a boat to reach there. You could walk, but you'll have to swim across the river, right? So you walk down as far as you could go down, and then you, where mother? Tell she me come to see she. Where is she? She in the kitchen. Tell she me come see she. Nita, I want cassareep. What you have home? What you have home? You must have cassareep remaining from Christmas. Huh? You have not self a little bit so self. Cassareep. So I had to work for cassareep. Trying to get a bottle. I could only get one bottle from Found Out Landing. Oh, the mud. Very slidey, slippery. Yeah. I don't know how far I reach on this thing with the cassareep, right? But modernization, that is the price you pay for modernization. Everybody wants things because it's more convenient. Now, the history of the Amerindian people comes into play, right? Now, in the past, Amerindian people were hunters, farmers, gatherers, right? And now, the way things change up is that the men go out and they work, they get paid, and with that payment they receive, it is enough for the woman not to work. So the women don't work and do, like, for example, farming and so on as much as before, because the man has enough money to provide for everything. They go out to the mines, they work, they go out and do their lumber, cutting down, sawing down, cutting down trees and so on. They get paid, and the money that comes back is enough to go and buy rations. So the women don't work as much as they did in the past. Some people might be offended by that, but that is the fact of life. If you understand the history of the Amerindian people, you will understand that that is what the past was like for them. Okay? And as modernization came into play, they are losing the culture because of modernization, but they have to do it. Now, what would I do to try and help out the situation? First of all, because of the flooding, you need to support the farmers. You need to support them and get their farms back in order. The weather patterns, the crisis, you want to call it a crisis when it comes to the climate change. Flooding is going to be expected to happen again at some point in time. So instead of going back and planting crops in the same place that might lose your crops, because cassava takes as much as 2 years for it to be mature enough to give good cassava bread. 2 years. So you have to hope that it does not flood for 2 years. So the leaders should consider having farmers move to a higher location so that they can plant their crops in that location where there's less risk of losing their crops. That is one. It's raining right now. You see the kind of sacrifices I'm making to get this cassareep. It's raining, drizzling, right? So I'm trying. Watch, you see my clothes getting wet. Yeah. The other thing I would do is try to make cassava bread making easier, mechanized. Okay. With the advancements in technologies, I am sure that there is a method in which, or machines that could be used, that is going to make things automated. And all you have to do is, you can even get a machine that probably takes out the cassava as well. I mean, they have that for potatoes, right? You can't make it for cassava bread. By getting it mechanized, you'll be simplifying the work a little bit. The machine could probably dig out the cassava, wash the cassava, right? Peel it and then grate it, okay? And having it mechanized is going to make the cassava bread making process faster. So that is also part of modernization. So instead of trying to find a way of getting the people to go and get back into the cassava bread making, what they should be doing is getting the farmers to make the cassava, grow the cassava, produce the crops, have a machine come and harvest the crops, and then have another machine to do the rest of the work. Right? It might seem impossible, but that is what modern technology is about. So somebody with the proper education could create a machine that does all of that. That is what modernization is. I cannot really or see any way of encouraging the women to continue making cassava bread by hand. It's very difficult. It's not an easy thing, right? All the videos will show you. It takes almost 3 days to make cassava bread, right? Cassareep is a product of cassava bread, so you could get a machine that does that. And in Trinidad, when we have the sugar cane, for example, the cassava cassareep is very much similar to molasses. Very, very similar to that. You know, you make your toleman thing with that, right? So I am heading to the mission landing because Uncle Vibert is going to bring that bottle of cassareep here at 9:30. So I have a little bit of time to wait a little bit for him, right, to get this bottle of cassareep. This cassareep is usually special because of how far they make it, and this person is one of the few people who will make cassava bread on a semi-regular basis. Semi-regular, right? And as I said, most farms lost their crops. So, alright, so that is my take on it. That is my belief. I hope nobody gets offended because it is part of modernization, and as much as people would like to tell the Amerindian people that they need to maintain their culture, why don't you just start making your own bread at home? By hand, not using a bread maker. So you knead the dough by hand, sift out your flour. As a matter of fact, you're supposed to grind your own flour too, right? Because remember, this is raw products that are coming out from the indigenous people, right? The cassava has to be grated by hand. So that is almost the equivalent of you having to go and make your own flour. So I hope that you all don't, those of you who are watching the video, don't attack me for showing you what modernization is. And it is not about me discouraging people from modernizing or trying to break up the culture. The culture has to adapt to how modern society works. It has to adapt, and machinery is the way to do it. Okay, so Aunty Joy, I hope you already get this the cassareep. I don't know how you're going to get it, right? Because you are in, right? So, but rest assured, this is one of the best cassareep that is made in the community. One of them who makes some very good cassareep, right? I'm not saying that everybody else does bad cassareep, right? I'm saying that I know where this cassareep is being made, right? I was supposed to do a video with them about the cassareep making process and everything. I never really got down to it. Hopefully people will understand and realize how important it is to document what it is that their life is like, because these things are changing. It's not people's fault in the sense that if you want them to make cassava bread, for example, then you have to lock yourself out from the modern ways of doing things, modern lifestyle. If you keep them in the hinterland, in the forest area, they will make their stuff and live their life. But with the modernization of how life is changing and how the economy as well, right? They are getting paid money and they don't have to work as much in the field. The women especially, because really women are the ones who do it. Okay? Because cassava bread making is really done by the women. So if they don't have this need to make the cassava bread because their rations are being provided for and it's cheaper to buy bread, I mean, as Kwame would do it, it's only obvious. Okay? So don't blame the Amerindian people. They are just adapting to a modern lifestyle. Alright? They can make the cassava bread, and for demonstration purposes, I would normally encourage that. That if someone wants to see the process of cassava bread making and they want to buy it, then I would say, you know, it might be profitable for that to happen, because you will have to pay the person to see the process, and it's a dying process. It is a skill that is not really being passed down generations anymore, because when you buy your bread, right, eventually you're not going to be making any cassareep, making any cassava bread or cassareep. Now cassareep is a byproduct, as I said, of cassava bread making. They will not grate cassava just to make cassareep. Right? They have to make cassava bread and also use the keli, the juice, to make the cassareep. Okay? And as I said, it's just like molasses. It is something that is burned down to remove most of the water, and that's how you get your cassareep. Okay? So I hope you enjoy this little video. I hope you understand a little bit about the process of getting the cassava bread and the cassareep and so on. Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Banco wines. All right, how much I have for you?